The second half of the season is here, and the Giants have some work to do, some things they have to change if they want to get back to the postseason.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. And please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And coming up on today's show, as I said, the second half of the season gets underway tonight, and guess what? It's not actually the second half. They only have 65 games remaining. They've played 97, so the 81 game mark is the actual halfway point. So less than half a season remaining, so we'll get into where they stand and why I believe some things are going to have to change for them if they want to get back to the playoffs, which obviously they do. We'll also discuss how do they do that? What is their deadline strategy as we are officially just 2 weeks away from the trading deadline? And also, now that the draft has been completed, we're going to look at some analysis of the Giants' entire draft, and it's a little nicer than I thought it was going to be based on some expert kind of analysis and some new rankings for the Giants farm system. So we'll get into all of that, but second half keys and predictions. And so one of the biggest keys jumps right off the bat for me is Rafael Devers being Rafael Devers, because Rafael Devers has not been Rafael Devers in a Giants uniform. When we look at what has he done in a Giants uniform, he has hit .202 with a .330 on base and .326 slugging. When he came over to the Giants, he was hitting .272 with a .401 on base and .504 slugging. That's 46% above average by measure of weighted runs created plus, and he's been 9% below average by measure of weighted runs created plus since. And there's a lot of reasons. His walk rate has remained strong, so that's not one of them. His strikeout rate is up almost 10 percentage points, and the power numbers are just significantly down. He hasn't looked comfortable. I mean, he's taken a lot of uncomfortable looking swings, and so they've kind of said that the back issue is affecting him running more than it is hitting, but to me, it looks like it's affecting him at the plate, and hopefully, like, this is going to be a big key that maybe we can tell right away. Hopefully, these several days off since Sunday have helped him recover in some kind of meaningful way to the point where he can get his swing back. The Giants are going to Toronto, where Devers spent his whole career in that American League East division, and the starting pitcher for the Blue Jays, Chris Bassett, Devers has owned him. And so let's go tonight, breakout game for Devers, and hopefully he can get hot. Like I said, I would ask, and I did, Gabby from Locked On Red Sox. I was like, is he a very streaky player? And she said he can be. And then what she said is, when he's hot, he can't be stopped. And so that, assuming health, and at some point in the next 8.5 years, there will be health, presumably, but can't wait for that to happen, for Devers to go on a streak where he can't be stopped, because so far he can't get it going is what's happened. And so he is a big key. it sounds like a cliche, but another one of the big keys is health. Like losing Matt Chapman for a month hurt. And he's typically a healthy guy. It was kind of a freak injury. So obviously you can never predict freak injuries. And so avoiding them will be huge. And it's hard to pinpoint that as a significant key. But how about a better second half for Willy Adames? I mean, that jumps off the page. He definitely was getting it going in the last month, ever since he finally had a day off. And so now he's had several days off. So hopefully he can just pick up where he left off. And he's always been better in the second half. I verified it looking at the advanced numbers and all that. And sure enough, Willy Adames has always been a second half guy. How about Patrick Bailey hitting better than he's hit this season, which even the last 2 years where he's had huge drop-offs mid-season, typically towards the end of the season, with the theory that he's worn down. This season, he just struggled. I mean, he did well in the first game, tied the game with 2 outs in the ninth on opening day. But overall, it's been a significant struggle. He's been about 40% below Major League average offensively. Still an above-average player by wins above replacement, given his excellent defense. But if he can just hit even like the last 2 years, then they'll be in a better spot. And then just Matt Chapman continuing to be Matt Chapman. So those are some of the keys. Also, Elliot Ramos and Casey Schmidt. Ramos has quietly kind of fallen off quite a bit. He's had some defensive issues that have just kept coming up. I said the other day, it was like the baseball was made of soap in the hands of Elliot Ramos lately. Like it feels like he just can't even pick it up without having it slip out of his hand. So we need to see a little bit better defense from Ramos. And can Casey Schmidt hold down the second base position, which has been a little bit of a revolving door with Fitzgerald and Christian Koss and now Casey Schmidt. So we'll see. And Koss figures to get healthy at some point. And so if Schmidt can't do it, we'll see if Koss gets another chance and if what he can do. But at the same time, the trade deadline is coming up, and so they may not want to wait. Like if Schmidt falters, maybe they make a move at that position. But on the pitching side, I really think it is fair to pinpoint health when it comes to Logan, Webb, and Robbie Ray, because particularly Webb, but also Ray, I mean, they have combined to throw a lot of innings, like 140-something combined innings. And Webb has a 2.94 ERA. That seems even higher. I'm surprised it's that high. And Robbie Ray has a 2.65 ERA. The fielding independent pitching is kind of flipped, where Webb's is significantly lower than Ray's, although Ray has a better expected ERA. So these two guys, I mean, under sub-3 ERAs for both of them with, 119 to 125 and 2/3 innings. Health is super important, because if you were to lose one of these two guys, your rotation suddenly takes a massive hit. And I don't know that they would be able to sustain that, although I do think that with this upcoming trade deadline 2 weeks from today, the Giants will probably make a move for some kind of veteran starting pitcher so they don't have to lean too heavily on the guys behind Logan Webb and Robbie Ray, particularly Landy Roop and Hayden Birdsong, who are both young and haven't thrown like 200 innings with consistency in their career at all. And also Justin Verlander, who's going tonight, which is like, yikes, maybe. Can he get his first win? Please. But yeah, those are my main keys. And when it comes to predictions, I haven't made those yet, so we'll make some predictions for the second half and also preview the trade deadline. It's definitely time to start thinking about that, as we are 2 weeks away, and we'll get into draft analysis as well. So all of that coming up in just a minute. And before we get into it, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are out getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even all these regular season games that I love feel even more exciting and like must-watch events, even for probably casual fans. So are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, here we go. We are going to get into those predictions that I promised I would make. It's so hard to make predictions, but we're gonna try, and also get into the Giants' deadline strategy 2 weeks away from the trading deadline. What are their biggest needs? What do I think they'll do? That kind of falls under the category of predictions as well. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers will be back on Monday breaking down this 3-game series in Toronto before the Giants head to Atlanta. So it's a pretty crucial stretch of games here, largely because the trade deadline is coming up, and we've seen, I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago where they came out of the All-Star break in a good position, and then they lost like 8 straight, and they just fell out of contention. And so you've got to always avoid something like that. But, you know, Blue Jays are a good team. The Braves have talent, and then you play the Mets at home. And so it's kind of a stretch where you're playing some good teams, and then it's the Pirates before the deadline. So hopefully the Giants can just survive Blue Jays, Braves, who are not having a good season, Mets, and then take care of business against the Pirates and put the front office in a position where they look like clear buyers and contenders. That's the hope. So in terms of my predictions for the second half of the season, I think that Buster Posey and company are going to do what it takes to plug the holes. And one of those, it's a possibility that plugging holes is not anything like what we saw with the Devers acquisition, but it's smaller moves, like maybe a bullpen arm, maybe a mid to back end rotation starter, but somebody who can help and provide some coverage so it's not just young guys. By the way, I think Carson Whisenhunt is a factor in the second half of the season. Left-handed starting pitcher plus changeup. And they lost Kyle Harrison in the trade for Devers. And I think Whisenhunt is kind of the next in line. And so we could possibly get a look at him soon. Maybe they want to get a look at him before the trade deadline to see how he does and if they need that extra starting pitcher. One of my other predictions, it's so hard, and I think this is largely wishful thinking, but for Devers to be significantly better than he has been so far in a Giants uniform, in some ways it's not a stretch because he's always been better than this. Like when you look at his career, like he's just always been a well above average bat. He was below average when he was 21 years old, and ever since then, even counting this year, his batting average is 282. Right now it's 255 on the season, and with the Giants, like I said, it's like 202. And his on-base percentage since 2019 is 356, and his slugging is 517. They keep showing graphics like on TV. The most extra base hits since 2019. Devers, number 1. Well, so far we haven't seen that. And so it's not exactly a hot take that Devers is going to be better. Let's just hope that it's not health related, because if you have a back injury and it's bothering you, like that can definitely affect things. And that would be a significant problem for the Giants. But if he does play better and if his back does feel better, he can move to first base, which is the plan, and then it makes that DH spot more flexible. You don't have to go out and like get a DH. You can, and you don't have to just plug in Wilmer Flores and Dom Smith either. You can acquire anybody at any position and rotate guys through the designated hitter spot. And I think that that's typically the best way to use that spot. And so there are certain needs that they have. This is kind of shifting the talk from predictions to like deadline needs, which is also kind of a prediction. But I think about right field and how Mike Yastrzemski at times has hit lefties well, but if you just look at the body of work in his career, he's been much better against right-handed pitching. And so currently, they don't have a great platoon partner for Mike Yastrzemski. It's Luis Matos, who had that big hit against a lefty, the Dodgers closer on Sunday, the last game the Giants played. But overall, in his major league career, hitting just 223, 273 on base, and 352 slugging. And so it is his last option year. So it is going to be, maybe if I want to make some bold predictions, how about Luis Matos or Marco Luciano or both get traded at the deadline? It's also possible one or both could get traded in the offseason, but the fact that Matos and Luciano will enter next season out of options, meaning they will have to be on the major league roster or else designated for assignment or traded, tells me now is a good time to trade these guys if they have any value, which they should, to some non-contending team. Because a team that can say, hey, look, we'll bet on the upside of a Luis Matos, and we don't have the pressure of trying to win right this second, so we can let them just play every day. That's the scenario that plays out. And so there are other guys that teams would target, of course, starting with Bryce Eldridge, but the Giants aren't giving up Bryce Eldridge unless it's like truly a game-changing player with cheap team control for years. That would be maybe the only situation. But yeah, that's one spicy prediction, is Matos or Luciano get dealt at this deadline. Maybe more likely Luciano, as we've not even seen him in the major leagues this season, but we have seen Matos. But I would say another one is that they find a right-handed platoon partner or just an outright starting right fielder and move Mike Yastrzemski to the bench, which would deepen their bench, which is an issue, the relative lack of depth on their bench. Yeah, I think I completed that thought. Just to acquire an outright right fielder to go along with Elliot Ramos, Jung-Hoo Lee, and then somebody else. Or you could possibly acquire a left fielder. And, you know, we discussed Brent Rooker only because Susan Slusser kind of was reporting that he may, or that his name is kind of generating buzz as a trade candidate. I don't see why the A's would move him, but if they were to move him, look, he's defensively limited. The Giants are kind of doing this thing again where they're stacking themselves up with defensively limited players. Elliot Ramos struggling plays a part in that. Devers not being able to play the field plays a part in that. Luis Matos has not done particularly well defensively. There's that. And other than that, they're actually a pretty good defensive team. But I'm trying to see, is there somebody injured? Yeah, Gerard Encarnacion, maybe not the best defensive player. But anyway, right field, either a platoon partner for Yaz, like a good one, or just another player and move Yaz to the bench. And then that DH spot, if Devers is able to play first. So maybe you need to get a first baseman so that they can kind of switch between first base and DH. Or you just trust that Devers can play first. That's going to be key for the next 2 weeks before the deadline, is to see, can Devers play first consistently without his back flaring up? Because if he can't, it limits what you can do and maybe makes you want to target a first baseman. And if he can, it opens up a bunch of possibilities where you could target pretty much any position and then utilize the DH spot that's the best scenario. And Devers, he was a below average third baseman, but he's never played a professional inning at first base. And so we don't know. Maybe he's a good defensive first baseman, and that could really change his value, actually, I think. And so also, like I said, starting pitching, even though pitching has been such a strength, I do think kind of ironically that it may be one of their bigger needs down the stretch, with Landon Roop reaching already 96 innings. Last year combined, he threw 76 and 2/3. And the year before that, he threw, it looks like 31 innings. And the year before that, 107 and 1/3. So he's approaching a career high in innings, and we have the whole rest of the season to go. And Hayden Birdsong last year threw, it looks like, about 130 innings. And the year before that, he threw 100 innings. And this year he's only got 65. So, but his performance has faltered. And then Justin Verlander, his performance has been not so good all season. And his last start, his stuff was really good, the best I've seen it all year. So hopefully he can keep that going the rest of the way. But I do see a need in the rotation, and maybe they call up a guy like Wisenhunt at some point in the next couple weeks just to see what they have. And then you might argue, how about lefty reliever? Joey Lucchesi has done a pretty nice job. Scott Alexander, it's been kind of rough since he came back. But the Giants made a move actually today to call up a righty, and we don't know or a lefty, and we don't know the corresponding move. So we'll get into that, and then a recap of their complete draft, not just day one, which was just 2 picks that we talked about earlier in the week, but a full recap of the Giants draft and a new top 10 Giants farm system, like who are their top 10 prospects based on a prospect analysis analyzer. What am I trying to say? Analyst, geez, that I really trust. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. Worried about what happens if plans change? The Game Time Guarantee has your back with cancellation, protection, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time, or the Game Time app, I should say, today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, here we go. We are going to get into whatever it was I was talking about last, plus the Giants draft analysis, their full, with 20 rounds complete, the full analysis of how they did in the draft according to Kylie McDaniel of ESPN, someone I really trust in terms of their prospect evaluation. And Kylie gave a full analysis of where every team's draft kind of stands after the draft was completed. And so Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, on Monday, we will be breaking down the 3-game series in Toronto. Justin Verlander going for the Giants. Oh, I remember what we were going to talk about. They called up a lefty reliever, waiting to see the corresponding move. I'm going to check right now if we have one. But anyway, there's going to be a lot to get to on Monday. And for now, baseball is back. We already got a game in progress. But the Giants have reportedly called up Matt Gage, a left-handed reliever, according to John Heyman this morning at 10:29 a.m. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter what time. But they'll need to open spots on both the 26-man and 40-man rosters to make his promotion official. I would guess, and let's remember that Eric Miller is on the injured list with a left elbow sprain, and the Giants have Joey Lucchesi and Scott Alexander on the Major League roster. Gage is out of options, so this is it. Like, I think this is one of those cases like I was talking about with Wisenhunt. It's a little different, but you want to see, do you have reliable left-handed relievers before maybe the trade deadline comes up and you have to figure out, do we need another left-handed reliever? And I think Lucchesi has done a pretty nice job, but Scott Alexander, I feel like I had a dream about Scott, so I want to verify that the numbers are actually bad before I say it, because I feel like I legitimately had a dream about his performance being horrible recently. He's thrown 1 1/3 innings, but allowed runs and home runs, obviously a small sample, but yes, 1 earned run, and it was a homer. So that's not saying much. 3 hits, though, in 1 1/3 innings. Did strike out 2, but Scott Alexander is 36, and they already have Joey Lucchesi, who's done better in a larger sample. It's only 10 innings with the Giants, but has done a good job and a ground ball rate of 62% for Lucchesi. So I would be surprised to see him go anywhere right now. So in terms of a corresponding move for Gage, I don't know that I see them with just rolling with 3 lefty relievers right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if the corresponding move is 2 birds with 1 stone, and if they were to DFA Scott Alexander. So that would be my guess. I never want to hope that someone gets designated for assignment, but they have to clear both a spot on the Major League roster and on the 40-man, and that would be a simple way to do it instead of having to make multiple moves, like option somebody and then DFA somebody else. So Matt Gage doesn't have a ton of Major League experience, but he's not exactly young either. But there's some solid track record of performance in 25 1/3 career Major League innings from 2022 to 2025, pitched with the Tigers just this year. He does own a 1.42 ERA and a 3.77 fielding independent pitching, and he's done some work in the minors, was with the Giants, was with the Tigers in AAA, had a 1.67 ERA for them in 32 1/3 innings, and didn't allow a run for the Giants in AAA in 5 1/3 innings. And last year spent time with the Mets and Dodgers in their minor league organizations and was better than average in those leagues as well. So I see solid potential in lefty Matt Gage, and apparently he's getting called up, and we'll see what the corresponding move is. So I do want to wrap up the Giants draft, and this is courtesy of Kylie McDaniel. And I just thought it was interesting to, well, actually, this is not the thing that I was looking for. He did re-rank the top 10, so we'll go through that for the Giants, and maybe it is what I was looking for, actually. So new top 10, according to Kylie McDaniel of ESPN, very good prospect analyst. Bryce Eldridge, number 1. Josuar Gonzalez, who is in the Dominican Summer League and has been tearing it up, makes it to number 2 on the list for the Giants. I'm going to quickly look up his numbers down there. And this was their top international signing. Many scouts kind of thought he was arguably definitely one of the top international players available. He's 17 years old, and he hit 246, 368 on base. Nice command of the zone at that age. 30 games down there, 20 stolen bases, strikeouts and walks equal. 22 walks, 22 strikeouts, and 20 steals caught twice. And every scout believes he's like a sure thing to stick at shortstop. So I've heard Francisco Lindor comps, not just randomly. People like Alex Pavlovich have mentioned that he's heard those. So definitely a name to watch. Carson Wisenhunt moves down from the number 2 prospect for the Giants to number 3 because Gonzalez has moved up. Gavin Keelan makes it to number 4. And there was somewhere where I was reading an analysis of their draft, and I don't have that pulled up. I thought I did. I thought it was this. I apologize for that. But it was nicer than I thought. I do remember what the piece was. It was about just their draft in general and the highest upside players to watch, this and that. So we will save that. We will get to that on Monday probably. I do want to give that to you since I said I would. But anyway, continuing through the list, Johnny Level, who has been making his stateside debut in Arizona, has moved up to number 6 behind Eldridge, Gonzalez, Wisenhunt, and Keelan, who, by the way, Keelan was their number 1 draft pick, 13th overall, comes in as their number 4 prospect now. So Johnny Level has had, a lot of talk about him this season, and he has been in the complex league and has been tearing it up. 298 batting average, 388 on base, 510 slugging, strong walk rate, low strikeout rate, 8 homers, 16 steals caught 5 times. So he's a shortstop as well. Joe Whitman, left-handed pitcher. Dakota Jordan comes in at number 7. Bo Davidson just promoted to Double-A with the release of Von Braun and Jairo Pomares. Bo Davidson moves up to number 8. Trevor McDonald, right-handed pitcher, number 9. And Carlos Gutierrez, right fielder, moves to number 10. So we will have that breakdown of the full draft. I do apologize that I didn't have that pulled up. I thought that was this, and I got it confused. But anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, like I said, we'll have that for you, and we'll be breaking down this 3-game series in Toronto. Verlander, followed by Logan Webb, followed by Robbie Ray in the series. So if you can win today, you got a good shot of winning the series. Just Verlander, at some point, Justin Verlander's got to get a win, right? Right? Anyway, for your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.